Hi, I'm Joni from ultimatepapermache.com, and my giraffe is all done. Now, you saw in my 2 previous videos, I was using him as a model when I was putting paper mache clay over the pattern that I created for the giraffe. And then after those videos were done, I had a chance to paint him. That was really fun. And then I took a couple of weeks to create the instructions that go with the pattern so that other people can make one too. So if you would like to have a giraffe like this in your own house, you can use my pattern now. It's online at ultimatepapermache.com/giraffe. Now, if you're not familiar with my recent patterns, it's the same as these guys back here, made the same way. I create an original clay sculpture, and then over a period of about a month, I work on creating pattern pieces that can be printed on regular letter size paper. And once you put these on cardboard, cut them out, and tape them together, you'll end up with a shape that matches the original sculpture that I started out with. This one came really close, and it was so much fun to work with because these heads, I mean, aside from the beautiful spots and the nice long neck, the head is just amazing. There's so many different shapes. They've got really strong bone structure. The eyes, they kind of bulge out because of the way the bones are built in the skull, and that shows up on the final piece. These ossicones, the horn things go on top. Oh, that was really cool. And so just putting the pattern itself together is really fun, just kind of watching it come together. And then you get to cover it with the paper mache clay. In this case, actually, I've got 2 different kinds of paper mache on there, and I'm going to tell you about that in just a second. And then, of course, you get to paint him. And there are so many different kinds of giraffes. Before I really started this, I've got several other giraffes that I've done in the past too. And so I was kind of aware of the fact that there's more than one different kind of giraffe, and they don't all have the same spots. But until I really went out there and did a thorough Google image search about giraffes, I didn't realize that there's so many different colors. This area up here, I've got it kind of a stripe down the middle. That's kind of unusual. That's not the way most of them are. Some of them are gray in front instead of orange. Some of them have reddish spots like I've got here, and some of them are almost orange. Some of them are really light. Everything is different from one individual giraffe to the next. There's so many different ones out there that you can use for models that every single person that uses this pattern is going to make it look different. They're all going to be one-of-a-kind pieces. And once you get the pattern all taped together and you've got your paper mache on there, it's basically a 3-dimensional canvas. You can just absolutely go nuts with them. Now, I do want to tell you about this particular pattern that's a little bit different from the other ones back here, aside from the fact that, it stands on a shelf instead of on a wall. I know some of you are actually collecting these patterns and building every single one of them, so you're going to run into a couple of things that are different with this one. This one, because of the shape and because it is on a shelf instead of on the wall, and it's really tall, it's about 2 feet tall, and it would be really easy to just walk by and knock him over on his nose. We don't want that to happen. So I put some plaster in the bottom of this. I'm going to show you how this is done really quickly. I actually mixed up the water and plaster inside of a plastic bag so that I didn't have any utensils and any bowls getting plaster on them. I made sure that those bags did not leak because I really didn't want to have to clean up a mess. And then I just put that wet plaster and the bag right down inside of the neck. When you put the first 3 pieces together, you basically have like a bowl of cardboard. I just put the bag of plaster in there and then real quickly put the next piece on top of it right where the plaster is still wet. And it gets hard right inside of that plastic bag, and it's also held in place by the shape of the neck, so you don't have any possibility of it moving around once it's hard. And after that, you just keep adding the pieces on, just taping them on up all the way to the top, add the head, and then your actual sculpture is finished. You just need to cover it with the paper mache. Another thing that we're doing differently on this one is we're using a lot more aluminum foil. The lion has a mane that I use raffia for, but for this one I used aluminum foil. It was really, really easy. I just crumpled up some long strips of aluminum foil and used hot glue to stick them on. The Giraffe has a really wispy mane, and of course our mane is solid, so I kind of used my paint in order to make it look kind of wispy by putting the white on the outside and then painting the orange hairs over the top of it. I think it worked out really well. You might find another way to make a mane for the giraffe that you like better. If you do, please let us know. I'm really happy with the way this one came out though, and it was really, really easy. The other places that we're using the aluminum foil are inside of the nose. I'm going to show you that in just a second how that was done. You actually get to stick your finger in a giraffe's nose, which probably most people will never be able to say they've done, which is kind of fun. I'm also using the aluminum foil, just a real thin strip on the inside of his lower eyelid, and that brings it out just enough to make it nice and realistic. I'm very happy with the way that came out. Now, on most of the patterns, we're using just one kind of cardboard. We're either using cereal box cardboard or we're using cardboard from a corrugated cardboard box. On this one, we're using both. We're using the cereal box cardboard for the head because it bends really easily. It's really easy to put together. The ears and the neck are made with corrugated cardboard because we need the strength of that heavier cardboard for those pieces. Now in this one I also used two different kinds of paper mache. I used the paper strips and paste on his ears, on his eyes and his eyelids, and right around the nose and around the mane. And I did that because paper mache clay just doesn't cooperate very well on sharp edges. It just takes a long time to get it around those edges and nicely smoothed off. So the paper strips and paste are just easier for those areas. But for the rest of it, I did use the paper mache clay. This particular one, because he was the one I had out when I was creating the new recipe for paper mache clay without flour. That's what's on this one. But of course the original recipe would work just as well. And both of those recipes are on my website. Just go to ultimatepapermache.com and click on the art library at the very top, and all my recipes are there. Now the very first part of this pattern that you put together is right here in the front. And it just happens to be the most challenging parts to put together. The rest of it is made with fairly large pieces, and so that goes together pretty fast. But right here, getting these lips to come together in exactly the way I wanted them to so that they matched my original sculpture, that was a little bit tricky. So I'm going to show you here exactly how that was done. I printed my pattern on a full sheet label. You can print yours on regular copy paper and use a glue stick to stick it down on your cardboard. The labels are so much easier. I really like doing it that way. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out my nose pieces, and I'll be right back to you. Okay, I got my pieces cut out, and I'm going to do the top ones first, number 1 and number 2. And one thing I like to do is just kind of bend my cardboard just to make it kind of curve a little more naturally. And then you want to bring all of your darts together. I use a lot of terms from sewing because that's what this looks like, is really darts and seams and things like that from sewing patterns. Now this piece that sticks out here, you can see it just kind of folds around like that. That's his nostril. So push on them just to make them match up. There we go. This line here should match up. You're going to go like this. And I'm going to start at the top and just keep working down until I can get all those pieces to match up nicely. I'm going to go ahead and reinforce those on the inside. So now I've got the chin done, and this is his lower lip, but I can't put it on yet because I need to give this fellow some nostrils. So we're going to do it with aluminum foil, like 3 inches square. I'm just making a very, very loose ball, 2 of them. I'm just going to put a bead of glue right around the outside edges of the nostrils on the inside. And I'm going to put my tin foil in there. I'm just going to press it down just a little bit to make it a little bit tighter. Trying to keep my fingers out of the glue. And then as soon as that glue is cool enough so you can trust it to not bite you, make sure that it's up right up next to the cardboard, and then stick your finger up his nose. So now we have the upper lip and we've got the lower lip. So what I need to do now is put them together, and there's a dotted line right here that kind of starts a crease. And what I want you to do is make that line right here really, really sharp. Just push it down really tight on both ends, and then start pushing the rest of it down as well, all the way around his top lip. I'm going to start at the corner of his mouth right here. This will meet up in the middle, but we're going to start at the corner. Just reinforcing it on the back. Just going to bring the other side up here. Now we can just pull the pieces together. I'm going to use kind of a skinny one right here in the middle. You can't really see the tape probably very well in the video. Now it doesn't have a really strong crease right there, and I really want one. So I'm pushing it in. You can see what I'm doing here. I'm kind of manhandling the poor guy. I'm just pushing so that I end up with a really deep crease right around here. I'll try to get this where you guys can see it. I'm just putting the tape in there. I'm using masking tape to make it a little bit easier to see. And I'm pulling it so that it hits the roof of his mouth, basically. How it's holding there. So now I have a nice strong crease right there where the 2 lips come together. Now this is the part we were just looking at. So you have a nice strong overhang on the upper lip, and then the bottom lip comes up to meet it. Then once you have your paper-mache clay on there, you have your nice soft curves. Now, like I said, that one part right here is the hardest part to put together, and that's only because those pieces don't seem to fit quite right when you're first doing it, because you kind of have to push them together to get that mouth to really look the way you want it to. But if you're patient and you just go slowly, it won't be all that hard. And then the rest of it is really quite easy, because all the rest of the pieces are a lot bigger. Again, you will need to follow the instructions, do it in order, and take your time. Now you're also going to want to be patient when you're putting the paper-mache clay and the paper-mache strips and paste on there too, because the more time you take and the more carefully you do it, the better the final result is going to be. I am going to put a link to a couple of videos down below that'll make those processes a lot easier. I do have videos on how to get the paper mache strips and paste on. They're really smooth. And the most recent video on how to make the paper mache clay really smooth, really easily without doing any sanding at all. So I'll put links to those down below. If you would like to make a giraffe of your own using this pattern, you can find it online at ultimatepapermache.com/giraffe. I absolutely can't wait to see how these come out because I know that every single one of them is going to be different. Just a few minutes ago I was out online and I saw that the spots on a giraffe are considered almost the same as fingerprints on people because every single individual giraffe has different spots. I didn't even know that until just a few minutes ago. These are really amazing animals. When you do make yours, please come back and show it off on the blog because I would really like to see them. I just can't wait to see how these come out. So come on back and visit me, ultimatepapermache.com. I'll see you there.